Tonight we're sharing our favorite games where you level up or power up during the game, but that aren't full campaign games.
Matching that topic, we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Vantage from Stonemaier Games. We're also going to be reviewing T-Witches, which doesn't really fit the theme, but is a very cool game.
As usual, we're also going to be talking about the games we've been playing and the events we've been hosting, including our first ever pop-up board game cafe. And we're also going to dive into first thoughts on how to save a world.
But first we should introduce ourselves. I'm Sean, your host, and with me is Deanna.
Hello to all the Bellhop boarders.
And Mo, the Tabletop Bellhop himself.
I am Mo Tuzano, the Tabletop Bellhop, your cardboard concierge, helping you make your game nights better.
We like to record Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/tabletopbellhop, and we love it when people drop in and join us in our chat room, the lobby, here on Twitch.
Now let's take care of some housekeeping. First, disclosure. Wherever you're watching or listening to this, any links you see are most likely affiliate links. When you use one of our affiliate links, it costs you nothing extra and helps to support the show. Speaking of supporting the show, I'd like to point out that this episode exists because of the support of our awesome Patreon patrons. Finally, I want to remind folks you can find links to absolutely everything we talk about in this episode over in our show notes. So if you're listening and you're thinking, how do you spell that game? What was the name of that thing they mentioned? It's all in the show notes. Just head over to tabletopbellhop.com/episode 287.
And we don't let Mo spell anything. The Tabletop Bellhop team is here to answer your gaming and game night questions. Tonight's question comes from Jonathan Franklin, who emailed us with this. Nice job on the RPG in a box episode, but I'm curious about character progression within a single gameplay. How about non-campaign, non-legacy games where your character gets stronger or gains more skills within a single session? Not meaning that you trade your +1 dagger for a +2 sword, but a greater sense of progress, hero's journey, quests, markets, movement, action points, etc. Jonathan went on to suggest a few potential titles like Runebound, Fallout, Star Wars Outer Rim, Xayah, Hexplorit, and Dungeon Degenerates.
Well, first off, thanks, Jonathan. That is actually a really cool topic. Yes, we have talked about campaign games in the past and games that feel like an RPG, and we talked about dungeon crawlers. But this is actually a unique subset of those that we haven't talked about. And honestly, something that I think is key to a campaign game, to me, is that progression and carrying over. So it's kind of neat to look at this for another way. Now, I do have to say, I don't generally like this. Like, one of the things I don't like about a bunch of games and a bunch of games we did not include in our previous list was the fact you don't carry anything over. If I'm playing a game where I'm going to play the same character over multiple scenarios, I want my progress. I want what happened in scenario 1 to matter in scenario 2. So I'm not a huge fan of this, but I don't mind it in games where you're really starting fresh, where like you're playing a different character with a different random element or a different setup, and each game is standalone. It's once there's the story there where you're telling a story, I want that carryover to be there. So just be aware of that when I'm talking about the games tonight, that I would generally prefer campaign games with an ongoing story where I carry over information. But tonight, that's not what we're talking about.
So I think a lot depends on how the game plays and your buy-in for a character, like Mo was talking about. If he wants to play the same character over and over again, he wants that character to evolve. But if I can play any character in any scenario, then it could be kind of weird if that character is suddenly better when I play it this time, or you know, different, or if if you have to revert it in order for someone else to play it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if I'm playing one character, locked in on that character again and again, then yeah, 100%. I don't really want to start over again.
See, it doesn't bug me. I mean, I like both. I also like campaign games. Both are good. And if you are interested in games where there is character progression that carries over game after game, check out episode 193 of the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, Dungeon Delving.
All right, so now that you got a bit of information on our preference for these style of games and what we like to see, let's get on to our list of games that feature in-game character progression, but aren't legacy, aren't campaign games, and there's no carryover from game 1 to game 2.
As usual, this list is just in the order it popped out of our heads. Now, so to start, we're going to start with 2 games that Jonathan already mentioned, as they are great recommendations that we really dig. Starting with Fallout, the board game from Fantasy Flight Games, and with season 2 of the TV show coming out in just over a month.
I haven't seen the TV show yet, so I can't relate the board game to that. But obviously, the Fallout board game is based on the very popular Bethesda video game series, which evolved from the Elder Scrolls series originally, which I'm actually a fan of that series going back to the Amiga days. So like the digital games, what Bethesda's famous for is making huge worlds and big sandboxes where, yes, there's an overall plot, but there's lots of interesting things you can do. And that is what they tried to put into the board game. And I think they did a pretty good job of this. You roll up your character, including your special stats. That's all part of this. And then you come out into the wasteland, coming out of the vault, and all you have is like the starting points of information for a mission, like go to this spot or talk to this person. From there, it's up to you. You get a hex map that's all face down, and you're going to flip them and reveal them. And then you're going to do all this through a clever use of a deck of cards that does neat stuff. So like you're presented with which way like situations where it'll be like flip the card 253 and you meet this person. And what do you do? And if it's you go this way, you grab another card. But then it does neat things where, like, if you eat a poisoned apple, you're going to add radiation cards into the deck that could come up later. Like, it does a really neat job of this. You keep playing and you either complete your mission or you fail. And next time you play, you either play the same mission with new characters or try a different mission. Each game play is a standalone experience. Now, what's interesting is that sounds like a cooperative game, and that's not what this was when it was published. This is very much a competitive game where you're trying to screw over the other players and you want to be the person who completes the mission. You're not working together, though you kind of might have to, depending on what comes up on the board. So it's a unique thing. Now, they did put out a cooperative mode in a later expansion, and almost everyone I've talked to is like, just play it with the cooperative mode, and you're going to enjoy the game a lot more.
Yeah, I'm curious to try out the co-op mode. This is a game where on our first play, it felt like things ended a bit prematurely or abruptly. And of course, you get to reset it and go back and try again. That fixes some of that feeling. But I remember I just wanted to throw out all the scoring and the end game win conditions, as that wasn't the fun part at all. The fun part was the character advancement and the kicking around the sandbox parts.
All right, well, the second game on Jonathan's list that we also recommend is Xia Legends of Adrift System from Far Off Games. This is a sci-fi sandbox where you are the captain of a ship and can basically do what you want. You can explore, complete missions, smuggle goods, become a pirate or a bounty hunter, hunting the pirates, and more. During the game, you will add new components to your ship, buy bigger and better ships, and unlock new abilities. This is one of the most open sandbox games we've ever played. Though we do strongly recommend getting Embers of a Forsaken Star expansion, which balances the game and makes some of the various playstyles more viable, as well as just adding more stuff to the game.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like the original is fun, but like trying out a couple of things, like I'm just going to be a smuggler. Yeah, it kind of works, but there were other ways that were easier, whereas Embers added a new market system that made doing that work a little better. There were more reasons to become a bounty hunter. There were also more reasons. There were more NPCs you could attack. So by playing a pirate, you weren't necessarily having to go over to the other players. It just overall, like Xia and Embers should just be bundled together for all time at this point. And it'd be really nice if they did that with a new edition. Now, speaking of new editions, we need one. This one seems to be currently out of print and has become hard to find. Far Off Games still has it on their website. So obviously copies are out there, but I'm not seeing on the normal online game stores. And I know it's the kind of game where every few years they run out of their print run, they run a new Kickstarter, they'll throw something new in there and reprint the game. And I'm hoping that's coming soon.
All right, well, sticking with sandbox games, next we have the latest entry to the genre, Vantage from Stonemaier Games, possibly the most ambitious sandbox game to date.
Yeah, I feel like we possibly can't call Xia the most open sandbox sci-fi game we've ever played anymore now that we've tried Vantage, though they are two very different experiences. The premise of Vantage is that you're all part of a crew on a spaceship, the ship crashes, and everyone escapes. The escape pods are spread out across an unknown planet. You step out of your escape pod and you see, this is where the game starts. You're given a landscape card that shows your current vantage and lists your options for how you can interact with the world. Now, you can talk to your crewmates over your headset, but unless you somehow manage to meet up, you're not going to be in the same space. It is a cooperative game, and you're working together with your teammates to explore the world, though. And you're going to collect resources, allies, upgrades, unlock quests, and work to complete missions or to fulfill your destiny. And then the next time you play, you're a different set of crew who've crash landed on the same planet. It's not a campaign game, but what you learn in one game carries over into the next and can impact your future plays. And it's encouraged for you to share that information forward so that eventually, over multiple plays, you get to discover the whole world of Vantage.
Yeah, this game is something else. I feel I'm now a Vantage ambassador since discovering this game because I keep trying to show it to as many different people as possible and introduce people to this world. This is very different from every game that's come before it, though it's obviously built on some other previous games that have some neat stuff. But like, as far as character progression, you're taking your crew member. You start with nothing. You have your character card, the one thing you're good at, and the one thing you can do to help the other players, and that's it. And then you explore, you move, you find stuff, you meet people, you do things, and your character evolves from that. And there is actually a direct level progression system that's kind of worked in there through the cards too. Like, I don't know. We're going to be reviewing Vantage later tonight. So if you're interested, stick around, listen to that. We'll be giving you a lot more details, all spoiler free. You don't have to worry about that. But like, this is the newest, the most interesting version of sandbox play that I've ever seen.
All right, well, moving away from sandboxes, let's talk a little bit about Cthulhu Death May Die from CMON.
So what I love most about this scenario-based, miniature-heavy game is the fact that it's a different take on the whole Cthulhu mythos, Call of Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft world thing. Mythos games are usually about research, investigation, and like subtle horror. It's like twisted things in the corners and things behind your eyes, right? Well, that's not Cthulhu Death May Die. Cthulhu Death May Die is in your face, tentacles touching you, two-fisted pulp, guns blazing Cthulhu. It's Robert E. Howard Cthulhu versus Lovecraft Cthulhu. And that is wonderful. I love this different look at the Mythos game. This is a dice-heavy, fast-playing Ameritrash game about advancing your character as quickly as possible and using your growing madness and insanity to your advantage before it gets the best of you and pushing those limits. I love it, except for the fact that each scenario starts off completely fresh, even if you're using the same characters. That bothered me so much in this game. I'd done all this work to advance this character, to be able to defeat this bad guy, and now it's another story with the same character, and I'm starting at square one. It really bothered me in this game for some reason. But to the fact that I now regret getting rid of this game because I need to enjoy this game for what it was, because it is really good at what it did.
All right, well, this one I loved in part because you could swap between characters and try a different take anytime, and it didn't matter. This was the whole, it worked in this game because you didn't have to always play the priest every single game or, whoever. If you wanted to play the priest this game and play the psychic the next game, you could, and it didn't matter. All right, but sticking with CMON Games, we have the entire Zombicide series of games. Similar to Death May Die, this is a series where you pick a scenario, pick a character to play, and go. The next game starts fresh, picking up a different scenario and a different, or the same characters. This is another miniature-heavy dice chucker, but with a very different play feel than Death May Die. Zombicide is more of a puzzle. It's about figuring out the best way to deal with the waves and waves of zombies. There's still a lot of randomness that can mess with your plans, but a solid plan is going to beat rushing in guns blazing every time.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about this series because like that puzzle element led to making certain scenarios and a certain field of the game just feel solved. Like once you figure out the puzzle, now it's just a matter of going through the process to get to the end of the game. We're like, yeah, roll. Yep, the archer takes out some. Okay, now we're getting the people to exit. But the interesting thing was, by picking up a single expansion, you completely change that puzzle. And there are a ton of expansions for this game. So you're playing the original Zombicide, and you have figured out the perfect spot to sit that you can protect the captive trying to escape. But then you throw in the Bat expansion, and suddenly there's something that can fly over buildings, and you're screwed. And I think that's really fascinating. The problem is, to keep the game fresh, you have to keep spending money, and I didn't like that aspect of it. Now, I will also admit that the puzzle aspect and the solved aspect has been improved with each new release in the series. I obviously have listened to fans and people playing the game. And I'll admit, I have not touched a Zombicide game since they put out a new second edition, which isn't even that new anymore. And I have to assume it's only gotten better. Like, I am super impressed by the number of settings they have and the new things. They did fantasy. They did Orientalism. They're doing Sorry, Asian, I should say, instead of Orientalism, but they've done modern, they've done the black and white John Romero look. Like the amount of stuff is amazing. And then the supplements you can get, like Monty Python or Metallica for Zombicide now. It's kind of ridiculous. And I think it's just really cool the amount of stuff they've thrown into this game.
Yeah, I would not have predicted the staying power of this game when we first tried it. Like for me, this was a one and done. Like, oh, I tried Zombicide. Cool. We beat a couple of scenarios. That was interesting. I see how it works. That's neat. I'm good. I don't need to play that again. I will say though, like EMNT, that's got me intrigued. The fact that it's still out and they keep coming out with new editions, I kind of want to try it again.
Well, next, we're going back to a classic that's still in print thanks to Asmodee's Avalon Hill, now on its 5th edition, Talisman, the Magical Quest game.
So I can honestly say this is the game that got me into hobby gaming. My current game collection started with Talisman 2nd edition and then buying up everything else I could find that said on it from the makers of Talisman. This is an old school roll and move adventure game where you get a character, you wander around on a map having encounters until you feel powerful enough to make a race for the crown of command to win the game. It features very strong PvP elements, things like roll and move and missed turns, and a ridiculous amount of randomness, where you can go to just about to win the game to I'm now worse off than I first started in one turn. Some people are going to love this. Some are going to hate it. I think most people nowadays who do enjoy the game enjoy it for nostalgic reasons. But I'm sure Talisman is still hooking new fans on adventure games out there.
And with the 5th edition, I don't know what exactly might be different in there. It's old school for sure. Like it does not have the sensibilities of a modern game where you end up sitting back and missing turn and possibly missing another turn and maybe missing another turn. And the randomness can mean that the game sometimes outstays its welcome.
Mm-hmm.
But for nostalgia, for sure.
Now, I do know in the later versions, they did speed up the game. It's not quite the long slog it used to be. There are quite a few new mechanics in it that have been to speed things up. You start a little bit more powerful. The penalties for dying are much more forgiving and so on. It is a little quicker. They have done things to streamline it, so it's no longer the all weekend game that it could have been.
All right, well, next up, we have a Supers game that I actually haven't played yet. It's been a date night thing for Mo&D primarily, but that's the living card game Marvel Champions from Fantasy Flight Games.
I forgot you hadn't tried that one yet, Sean. I'm kind of shocked. Marvel Champions is a living card game where you pick a villain and a side plot to face off against, and then each player picks a hero to try to thwart that villain. And it's a card game, but as the game progresses and you're making your way through your deck, there's a real feeling of escalation, and you get to improve your character and unlock abilities. I will say, though, aside from some randomness from the cards, there's no novelty here. You're going to get a very similar feel each time you play that particular character. But honestly, my favorite part of this game is the learning curve, because each character feels unique, and learning how that character evolves and how to best play that character is a large part of the fun for me.
Yeah, this is one we actually debated putting on the list because how much character progression is there? And then we also talked about potentially including the Sentinels of the Multiverse series for the same reason. This one definitely feels more like your character's improving as you're playing than Sentinels, which is one of the reasons we kept it on the list. I did see it on many other people's lists on that. And yes, you do get the feel that, like, yes, you're Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and you got to balance your life. And there's no way you're taking out Doc Ock on the second turn of the game. There's that feeling of buildup and escalation. But Dan is right. Like, you don't actually progress, though. There is the character progression outside, because this is a living card game, is after every game playing Spider-Man against Doc Ock, you can tweak your deck and improve it so that you have a better chance next time. So there is that aspect of it. But now we're getting into living card games and our living card games individual experiences with character progression. And that's the talk we might have had before we started sharing games. So I'm just going to stop now.
All right, well, next I have Sanctum from CGE Games, the board game that was promoted to be Diablo in a board game. While not quite the Diablo we expected, this is a game all about leveling up your character to prepare for the final battle. You unlock new gear and skills by killing wave after wave of enemies, which, yes, feels very Diablo-like. It's the mechanics of rolling pools of dice, hoping to match the numbers on monster tiles, roll for it style that didn't really give us the hack and slash feel we wanted. Still, it's a really strong character building game worth checking out.
That's an interesting one because you're taking all your equipment and trying to maximize your equipment to get the best combos to mitigate the dice, which is kind of an interesting thing going on. But the biggest problem I have with this game is the whole progression part of the game is a ton of fun and I really enjoy it. But then there's the end battle that just kind of resets everything. And then everyone's playing their own little solo mini game with no player interaction whatsoever for the final boss fight. And there's just this disconnect between the two halves of the game. And if you fail at the first half, you'll have no chance at the second half. So it's kind of weird. Sanctum, like I wanted to love, and I end up liking it. It's not bad. It's just not quite what I wanted, and it just feels off.
All right, well, we're going back to the sandbox again, though it's not the only way to play the game Mage Knight from WizKids, now with an Ultimate Edition out there.
So this game mixes sandbox play with scenarios and missions. So it's not, there is a way to play the game where it's just a sandbox, where you just play exploration mode, you're flipping tiles randomly, and it's kind of like a roguelike. You're just going to explore the world and do what you want to do. You can do that, but it's also designed with set scenarios and missions with I don't remember how many, but a number in the base game box and more in all the expansions. And all of those come in the Ultimate Edition. The progression here is done through deck building. It is a deck building game. And this is a game where you get new cards by like going into town and stuff like that. This is a game, though, that has one of the biggest power curves where you're going to start off the game literally scared of like orcs and goblins, but end up being able to wipe cities off the map by the end of the game. This is one that I actually wish I had more time to explore further myself. And I know a number of people who play this like a campaign game in that they play in the exploration mode and just leave the game set up and, you know, discover a new city or a couple tiles every day. But you can play them as totally standalone experiences, and you don't have to play solo. You can play with friends.
Well, another Supers game with a good feeling of advancement is the Marvel Dice Throne from the Op and Roxley Games, which I'm sure stretches out to the entire Dice Throne series of games, not just the Marvel ones we've played.
Dice Throne is a mashup of Yahtzee-style dice rolling and card play. You've got this player board. It's basically a character sheet, and it's covered in abilities. And then each character has cards in their deck that allows them to upgrade those basic abilities, making them more powerful and unlocking new options. Getting those power upgrades is a key part of the game. Each character is super asymmetric, and we've been really impressed by how they each capture the flavor of their powers and how differently each one plays from any other.
So this one does have the problem we mentioned earlier with Marvel Champions of that you are using the same deck every game. Every time you play Rogue, once you learn how to play Rogue well, is probably going to feel the same as every other game but Rogue. What makes it interesting is weird how you have to adapt your strategies based on who you're playing against. So playing Rogue against Gambit, you're going to play very different than you played Rogue against Loki.
I think the other thing that makes this one fit for me, though, is the fact that you may not be able to upgrade your characters. The cards may not come up in your shuffle. And there is any number of times I've played this game where I've gotten maybe only 1 or 2 upgrades and had to still fight through versus, you know, getting them all up early and becoming way more powerful than somebody else who didn't get them. Well, next I have One Deck Dungeon from Asmodee Games, a card-driven roguelike. This is primarily a solo experience. You can play it 2 players, but each time you delve into the dungeon, you slowly build up your character, adding equipment, skills, or experience in the form of the cards you defeat as you delve ever deeper. Now, this one is actually a bit of both legacy and also not, because while each time you delve, you start from scratch. That's it, period. Nothing. But each time you get all the way through, you are tracking your advancement and you are unlocking new things to add into the dungeon that you could possibly potentially level up with. But no matter what, when you go back to once you're dead or once you've won, you start from scratch again.
Which obviously is very inspired by digital roguelikes, right? The whole Slay the Spire. You get to the end of the Spire, and what do you get? You might get some new cards that are thrown in the deck for the next time you play. I think it's actually very cool. This is a game I have not gotten to explore myself, but I have seen played a couple of times.
All right, well, next up is one that we've had a lot to talk about in the past. Hellbringer from Les Editions Spash is another attempt at recreating that roguelike feel in a card game, this one with a fantasy theme.
Yeah, so earlier we mentioned how Sanctum doesn't feel like Diablo. Well, Hellbringer does. To me, Hellbringer is the Diablo board game. You really get that feel of delving deep, going as deep as you can, fighting wave after wave of enemies. You create your character with a number of different options, and your player board is a character sheet with slots for different types of equipment as well as skills. The deeper you go, the more cards you're drawing. You're battling monsters using a really neat line of sight system. You're improving your skills, collecting better gear. This is a great solo experience. You can also play cooperatively. While the game does include some scenarios, the actual gameplay is still basically the same. You're flipping up new cards to see what you find. Deeper in the deck you get, the deeper in the dungeon you are, and the more difficult things become. This one's surprisingly fun game. It is up for a reprint right now on Kickstarter. So if you search Kickstarter Hellbringer, you can actually check this game out with a new second printing.
All right, well, it seems open world video games make for good scenario-based board games, as our next game is Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game from Steamforged Games.
Each time you play, you select a character and a beast to hunt, and then you work your way through a series of encounters where you're trying to do as good as you can so that you improve your character enough before the big boss fight. Each character has their own progression tree that lets you customize them to fit your playstyle. It's designed to be played competitively, but there are also cooperative rules, and you do sort of have to work together as you're playing competitively even. And while the core game only gives you one big machine to hunt and 4 different characters to play, there are many expansions, adding more characters, machines, and playstyles.
What was neatest in this one is that the fact that the leveling up was done like a skill tree, and there were multiple options, and the ability to customize your character. Plus, we also found this one lended itself to role playing in an interesting way for like a miniature based, combat encounter system. There was an awful lot of like playing in character when we played through this. The weird one among this is that a full game of this takes multiple hours. So I wasn't sure if this quite fits for a single session, because to finish an entire hunt is really you're playing the game 5 times. Well, you could do that in one session. You probably don't want to. So this fits on the list if you want the epic game night. But once you finish the hunt, the next hunt you go on, you are starting from scratch.
It's more like a scenario than a campaign, and it does reset each time. But yeah, you're right. This really had that you are playing a character feel to it that led to us role playing.
Yeah, I mean, we played this game over multiple days because of the length of time involved. So it did feel like I got to develop and meet and know my character. And because we didn't get a chance to go back to it after that, I didn't get that sort of compression hit from all of a sudden having a blank character to start over with.
Right. So I just need to back up a minute. I said the new Hellbringer is on Kickstarter. It's my bad. I was using Kickstarter as crowdfunding. I shouldn't do that. I know Kleenex is facial tissue. It is actually on GameFound. So I just needed to step back and thank you, Red Meeple Ryan, for the correction. The new version of Hellbringer is on GameFound, not Kickstarter.
All right. And well, our last official recommendation for the night is the deck building card game Clank, a deck building adventure from Renegade Games. We were talking about it and how almost all deck builders sort of give you that feeling of advancement and improvement, and we considered many for this list. But Clank feels the most like you're playing an RPG character, where the cards you add to your deck represent new skills you've developed, items you discovered, and loot you found, which thematically end up clogging up your deck and making the more you carry, the harder it gets to move around.
Or at least to move around.
Yeah, that's another whole aspect of Clank is you were trying not to make too much noise and get the dragon's attention. Yeah, Clank is. I always feel like, though I will admit at the end, I don't feel like I have a character. I don't feel like I'm like, oh, I'm the barbarian. I bought all the combat skills, but I definitely feel like my character has improved from that first room in the dungeon to when I'm trying to get out before the game ends.
All right, well, honorable mentions now. First up, Spirit Island. You play spirits trying to defend your island from colonists, and a big part of that is leveling up your spirit during play.
This one looks great. I still have yet to play this game. I've seen it out at our public play events. I keep hearing great things about it. It's extremely popular, but have not played it. My next honorable, though, we have played many times, and that is the Thunderstone system. This is a deck builder game that I would have put on the main list because it feels even more like playing a fantasy RPG style character than Clank does. But sadly, it looks like the game may be dead. There was Thunderstone, then Thunderstone Advanced, then Thunderstone Numenera, which is the one we played the most. Then there was Thunderstone Quest. But like looking it up in prep for this episode, it did not look like there was like any current version of Thunderstone or any in the works. Maybe it's still out there and I missed it. This is a deck building game where the deck represents you and your party of adventurers who you are going to use to go out and defeat monsters. And each turn, you either go fight monsters or you go into town to try to recruit and shop and buy stuff. This, of all the deck building games that are meant to recreate that D&D fantasy RPG feel, I think gets it the closest.
Yeah, I think Thunderstone is the card game that captures that spirit of adventure and character advancement the most. It's one of the first things that popped into my head when considering the question, but yeah, out of print, definitely out of print. So I've got our last honorable mention, and that's the classic Steve Jackson Take That card game, Munchkin, where the entire goal of the game is to get your character to level up to level 10 by defeating monsters, collecting loot, and backstabbing your friends. This one is definitely in print. It's only being listed as an honorable mention because it's not a game we've really enjoyed all that much. What is it we used to say? 15 minutes of fun in a 2-hour game. However, I'm well aware that Munchkin has a legion of fans out there, and just because it's not for us doesn't mean it's not for you.
Now, one thing I want to call out, just this past weekend, Steve Jackson Games announced Munchkin 2nd Edition. I don't even know how old Munchkin is. It's got to be like the 30-year, maybe even 40-year-old game at this point. But there's a new version finally coming. Yes, he hired John Kovalik of Dork Tower fame to do all the artwork again, so that's awesome. You'll still get your tongue-in-cheek artwork from John Kovalik or Kovalik. I've heard it said both ways. And I honestly like Munchkin's. It's silly, stupid fun, and I enjoy it now and then with the right group. Yes, it can sometimes overstay its welcome, but it's fun enough that I want to try the new 2nd edition. Well, I haven't kept up. I'm like, I will totally give the game another chance. And if what they did to streamline it works, that is fantastic.
So that's 24 years old. 2001 is when that one came out. All right, well, we've got a lot of chatter happening in the lobby today. Some great things coming out of that. Some people jumped the gun a little bit and threw in Zombicide before we got to it, but we did get to that one. When Darkness Comes can apparently be played as you power up for that game only, or as an RPG as you level up over several games.
Okay, that's cool. I don't recognize that one, not one we played, but could be a great recommend. I like that it's an option that you can play it scenario or you can play it.
Next up, we've got Shadowrun Crossfire, though they do not actually recommend playing it more than once.
Though from what I understand, Shadowrun Crossfire isn't on the list for the same reason Aventuria isn't on the list, or the Pathfinder Adventure card game. There is actual progression where your deck improves between games or your stats go up, or there's a minor thing that carries over between. From what I understand, I may be wrong on Shadowrun Crossfire.
Mo and I were discussing this because Aventuria there's very little carryover. I remember being disappointed in how little carryover there is, but it does have carryover and therefore does not qualify.
Yeah, Aventuria, when you complete a mission, you pick one of your stats to up by 1. And then if you succeeded, you can take one of the treasure cards you found during that game only and swap it for a card in your deck. And that's it. That is all the progression that is in at least the original Aventuria. Apparently, the latest stuff out of Kickstarter has added new rules with more character progression to go along with the branching paths on the adventures, but we haven't actually tried those to recommend them.
All right, well, next up was Robot Quest Arena, one we've talked about plenty, and that really does make a lot of sense, again, because it's a deck builder.
Yeah, it's that deck building. You're leveling up your bot for that game, and then it resets next game. Is it leveling up? Is it advancement? Is it just buying cards? It's kind of the whole thing. So, and yes, Charlie Brown Windsor has confirmed that Shadowrun Crossfire was superseded by Dragonfire. And yes, you gear up with magic items that are carried over. And we're trying to avoid any carryover. Every game's completely standalone.
So Mosaic, A Story of Civilization was another recommendation. And I'm thinking, I haven't played it, but I'm thinking this is your civilization progresses, not a character. And I looked around the room at a whole bunch of ones where we progress a civ, and I decided to not include those. Am I wrong? Honestly, is it about a particular character?
Every engine builder, you progress your thing. Like that's what an engine building game is. I did not want to talk about engine building games. To me, that's a totally different mechanic.
Civ games where you have tech trees and stuff, that's a definite sense of progression, but it's not character leveling.
Exactly. Like Twilight Imperium has a tech tree, and your species is going to be very different by the end of the game. But to me, that's not, you don't have that leveling up, that feeling of I've improved my character.
All right. And then the last one that came up was Lords of Waterdeep.
Same deal. You aren't playing a character in Lords of Waterdeep. Like
you're
technically
guild.
Someone behind the scenes manipulating events, sending cubes out to do things for you. To me, there's no progression in Lords of Waterdeep, to be honest. There's no character. There's no sense of progression. No, sorry.
All right, well, there you have a list of our favorite games that involve leveling up and character advancement, but that don't have a campaign element. Games where every play is a standalone experience.
So, what are your favorite games featuring character progression? What's missing from our list? What should we be looking to check out? We want to hear about it. Leave a comment, fire off an email, send a direct message, get that list of games to us however you like. Though personally, love it when people post in the Tabletop Bellhop Discord, which you can find over at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
Welcome to the Bellhop's Tabletop, where we talk about the games we've been playing and other cool gaming stuff going on.
So this past Sunday, we hosted our first ever legendary pop-up board game cafe at Hidden Trail Experiences on McDougall, and I think it went really well. We showed off some of our favorite games and some brand new hotness to folks who seemed to have at least had a fantastic time. Alex, aka Auntie Aldu, was there with coffee, tea, cocoa treats, and various other baked goods for what felt like a very different event than our usual brewery open game nights or even when we were at the cookie bar.
This is a more intimate, quieter setting, less frenetic than most of our event locations tend to be. I'm going to bring some extra lighting next time, as there were some dark areas that weren't ideal. But overall, I think this was a great gaming experience for those that were there and a valuable addition to our local gaming offerings.
Yeah, at a quick glance, I thought the lighting in the party room was great, but then once you're actually sitting in there, you realize that one corner gets pretty dark. So yeah, more light's always better.
Now, one thing I did like about this event is it let us show off more epic games, right? So it's a more involved, heavier, longer games because it's a better atmosphere and setting for learning and playing that type of game. You're not looking for fast and furious party games and people aren't drinking beers, and it's just a different atmosphere. Where you do have better lighting, where it's more intimate, you're in closer, it's not as loud, you're not having to yell over people or anything like that. I think it was really good this way because also because of the lower numbers, myself and our other game teachers could spend more time with people and literally like walk them through a full game instead of, okay, you guys got it, and wander away and then kind of leave people to sink or swim. Hoping that if they get confused, they call us over again. It was nice to be able to literally monitor the games and kind of watch around the room and notice if someone did something wrong. Like, oh, no, wait, you can't quite do that. We'll back that up. I'm sorry if I didn't explain that well.
So I will say, depending on the number of people we get out to these, that's not guaranteed that we can always like walk people through at that level. It's because we didn't have a ton of people there. I think we said the venue was capped at 40 people. If we had 40 people with 3 game teachers, we're not going to be able to sit there and walk them through every game.
Yeah, the only real negative for me is that because it is a smaller, more intimate group, I don't get as much as opportunity to do the sort of gamer-to-game pairing that I have grown to love doing at our more crowded events when people are just sort of coming up going, what do I need to play? What do I want to play?
Yeah, poor Sean, he was bored.
I think what we have to do is if we do have the lower numbers again, we'll just put our butts in seats and play games along with people so we can teach them and then school them in them at the same time. Now at the event, we got to show off Hutan, which we just reviewed last week, to 2 different groups. We let some players experience Vantage. We got through a full 4-player game of Team Witches right to the finish. A small group built a city in Guildlands. And then there were some pickup games of Boop, Floristy, Zensu, Courtesans, and Hex Effects.
It didn't feel like it at the time, but when you say it like that, it sounds like a lot of games got played.
Yeah, what I liked is that everyone got to play at least 2 games, which was nice. Everyone got to experience at least 2 different games in the 4-hour window, which to me, I think is kind of a goal. Like, I think we should aim for that everyone gets at least a 2-game experience, if not more.
Getting to help a group play through Vantage was fun. I don't think that's something I could pull off when we're at the brewery where it's louder and busier. So that was neat. I enjoyed it. It was neat getting to see a few things that we hadn't explored yet in the game. And I even managed to squeeze in playing a game of floristry. I taught our pop-up barista, Alex, and she loved it. It was super fun.
Yeah, I'm hyped about our next event. It's coming up quick. Unfortunately, we don't have another public play event to help promote this one at. So get the word out here on our podcast for anyone's in the Windsor, Detroit. I would go as far as Chatham area. You might be worth the drive. Sunday, November 16th. Again, we're going to go noon till 4 p.m. for a more intimate tabletop bellhop experience. For anyone interested in going, what we suggest you do is call Hidden Trail to book it. It ends up the online booking had some service fees we weren't aware of, so I don't recommend using the online booking. just call ahead. Let them know you are interested.
Yeah, even if you want to pay at the door, you can just let them know so we get the numbers accurate.
Yep, so we can reserve seats. If you go to tabletopbellhop.com/hidden, that's the page I'm keeping updated with all the event info. So you can find the phone number for Hidden Trail there and all the other details.
Next up was a kind of surprise game night with Kator, for anyone who remembers that term. That is Kat and Tori, who we haven't seen in way too long. Kat and Tori have now have 2 children, and have been very busy raising those children. The youngest is only 9 months old. They managed to get a rare night off for Tori's 33rd Hobbit birthday. We met up with them at a local pub, had some dinner, a couple beers, and then headed back here for games. With the big Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien fans they are, we decided to show off the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game because I hadn't played, started back from game 1, and we managed to get through scenarios 1 through 6 in one sitting, which is actually further than we ever got with the kids. But I think part of that is just how much they love that particular setting. Now, Kat and Tori are big trick-taking fans. They're big Lord of the Rings fan. This game was a hit. We probably could have played all night and probably could have just kept it to that. But I'm like, we hadn't seen you in so long. I don't want to just play one game. And I really wanted to show them Vantage because this is a group who we played Gloomhaven with and who we've role-played for in the past. And I know they enjoy story-style games, so I wanted to show them off as well. So we did cut it a little short. But this game's just good. I am looking forward to picking up the Two Towers version when it comes out. It's been really fun unlocking new characters, new challenges. Though, man, I do not like Old Man Willow. I think it took us 3 or 4 tries to get past that scenario.
Yeah, we waltzed through those first few scenarios. I think because Kat and Tori know trick taking, and we've all played a bunch of trick takers, and it does get progressively harder, right? So I don't know. To me, it actually felt good to get stumped for a bit with Old Man Willow. Stumped, get it?
Next up, as I said, we showed them Vantage. They were both hooked. We were right; they liked it. Took a bit to get going. There was some difficulty with the rules for what dice could be slotted where. Tori was having a little hard time grasping why and how for a bit. But it was good. It still worked out. It impressed again. Dee and I got to see things we've never seen before. It was yet again a unique experience. For the 3rd time now, no one was anywhere I had ever seen before. Once in playing Vantage, we've had one character be in a spot that someone else I played with was. This was all new experiences for me, nothing I'd seen.
And organically, Tori just happened to, his character got to do something pretty epic. And while it wasn't an official win condition for the game, that felt like a good place to stop because the birthday boy got to do something cool and it made for a memorable evening. I will say every time that this game hits the table, it just feels different. I'm trying to be the most spoiler-free possible because the entire point of the game is discovery. But I've been really impressed by how different each of our plays has been.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this more in our review after this, but there are some interesting ways to play this game that involve different ending conditions. You don't have to play until the end condition emerges. There are multiple different end conditions, or you can say, we're going to play till 4 o'clock and go home. And that's perfectly acceptable way to play the game.
Because it really is more of an experience than a game. And I explained that to the group that I was teaching it to at the pop-up cafe. I am a competitive person who likes to play competitive games. And this is not that. This is not a game where you are trying to get to the win condition. This is a game where you are playing it to have an experience.
Yeah, and that night we did have a limit. We were like, we are going to stop playing Vantage at midnight because they need to get home and get the kids off the parents and relieve the parents from babysitting duty. But at 11:30 something, Tori did something that honestly I think is very Tori-like. And we're like, all right, you did the thing. I think we're going to stop now. And everyone's like, yeah, I don't know. This is a good time to stop. And actually it felt more satisfying than some of the other stop conditions we've hit while playing the game. So totally fun. Now, the last game we played this past week was over at Brenda's, and that was How to Save a World from Burnt Island Games, who we do have to thank for hooking us up with a copy. Thank you, Sean. This one was a bit of a shock to me. We got a very early look at this game at Origins over a year ago, not even this year's Origins, but last year's. And like I knew the basic premise. They're like, you're trying to save a world, there's a meteor, and there's a bunch of different ways to stop it, and you're gonna figure out which way it is. And it's like bright and colorful. And I just wasn't expecting the game to be as cutthroat, punishingly tight, and deep and meaty as far as the decision space goes.
Yeah, with the overview, which was many moons back, I got the idea that this game had a lighter, sort of snarky vibe, and I think it's because when explaining it, he kept referencing "Don't Look Up," which was new at the time, and yeah, that stuck in my head. Like, I was really excited to try this, but I was not expecting it to be the deep dive of a game that it is.
Yeah, I hadn't read the rules and I had missed the demo at Origins because I had to go to a different panel. So only reading through the Board Game Geek entry, I wasn't as shocked about the others were as the weight because I had seen the number there and read through some of the comments. This is a hefty game though, and I admit the art style is a bit not misleading, but not as dry as you expect from a heavier game, I guess.
And to be honest, it's actually quite thematic for what's really a heavier worker placement resource management game. So this is a game where you're competing teams trying to save a unique species off the planet Alaria. So it's not set on Earth. You're not trying to save Earth. There's another planet. There's 3 plans in place. There's a massive laser to destroy the meteor, a shield placed around the planet in case the laser fails, and then finally there's a plan to evacuate all these species to the moon as a last resort. Players are going to be taking actions to collect resource and contribute to these projects while also doing research to improve their own actions in the game. Now, actions come 2 ways. There's worker placement through moving these 3 spaceships, and there's also a hand of cards where you can increase your hand of cards. You only start with 3 and only one's an action card, but you can buy new cards. But the cost of the cards is the number of cards you already own, so that escalates quickly. At the end of each round, after everyone's taken all the actions they want to take, there's like a progression phase where you pull cubes out of a bag. And it's kind of a bag builder because every time you contribute to a project, you put in colors of that cube or cubes of the color that matches the project. And at certain times during the game, you add in more meteorite cubes. Well, you're going to pull out a number of cubes at the end of each round. And through that, the projects will progress, but so will the meteor move towards the planet. Once there's impact, which can happen 4 different ways, you determine which project was the primary project, which one worked, what saved the world or what saved the species. Players then get points based on majorities on the projects based on how much they contributed. So if you contributed the most to the primary project, you're going to earn the biggest bonus, which is 18 points.
I'm amused that you saved the world no matter what. You get the happy ending. No worlds were destroyed in the making of this game.
Well, technically, I believe the world is destroyed, but the species on the planet has been saved.
True. You all evacuate to the moon.
Yeah, the only time you actually the first two instances actually save the world, destroy and deflect. But the third option is you just get out of there and the world is gone.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't able to play as yet again, apparently, with this game. I had other obligations, but I sat in and I watched the beginning and the ends of the game. Now, one thing I noticed, which agrees with a lot of what I was reading about, is that the length of the game wildly impacts what strategies will work. But that is randomized, making picking your path forward in this game a very tricky one.
Yeah, it seems like the laser, the longer you go, the better chance that'll work. And I think it's the opposite. If the impact hits early, evacuation is what you need to do, which again, kind of thematically makes sense, right? You didn't have enough time to finish the big projects. You got to go with the last one. What I will say in this game is it's rather approachable for how big and meaty it is. The core mechanics are quick to pick up and easy to learn. Each worker placement spot is really simple. It's like gather resources or spend research or work on a project. That's pretty much the only options, or get new cards. And then the actual individual card actions, again, are really simple. Like each card is like, do this one thing when this happens. Yep, that's simple. Boost it with other cards. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. The hard part, though, is figuring out what you should do, in what order, and when. And there's the fact that your plans can very easily be ruined by the actions of the other players. No other game I played in the last year, at least, has had such an ability for other people to mess with you before it gets back to your turn. It was harsh in this game. This is a meaty, cutthroat game. This is just much heavier than I thought it was going to be. But it's got that like kind of light feel to it. Something about the artwork and everything makes it feel more approachable.
There are a lot of decision points here. Like you're placing 3 worker meeple spaceships, and depending on the action you take, they move between the planet and the moon. And you can also pay to fly them back and forth. But yeah, on top of picking a spot and making sure that someone else hasn't taken your spot, you need to be on the right part of the board to access the spot. And then the moon starts off pretty limited, but new actions are unlocked there as the game progresses. And you're also unlocking tech upgrades on your own player board. Like there's just a lot going on. I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, this game can go as early as only 2 turns, or it can stretch out to, I think it's almost 8 turns before the meteorite hits or the comet hits. So there's a large variability there in what's going to happen during this game. I will say the one thing we did find is a little problematic, and we confirmed that a number of other people also found it somewhat problematic, is the first player mechanic does seem to be not a cheat code, but it feels unfair.
Mm-hmm.
And we still weren't able to determine whether or not it actually is unbalanced, but it gives that impression very strongly.
Yeah, there's a spot you can take that gives you first player, gives you a bump up on the rarest resource in the game, both in production and in actual value. And then everyone else takes all their actions. Once everyone's passed, that person then gets to move that ship to any other spot on the moon that's open. And it just seemed really powerful, but more so it was the fact that when one player got first player, through that, they just did that as their first action every turn. And anytime there's a game where there's a rote action, that's what you do every turn. If you're first player, you take that spot because it's the one that makes the most sense. It feels a little broken. Maybe it's our inexperience with the game, but that did seem to be confirmed by what Sean was seeing online.
It just raises the cap. You don't actually get a piece of
okay.
That was a card that I had that was comboing with it, so I could see how you could get that mistaken. That's why I wanted to correct you.
Oh, okay.
But if your cap
there was
goes
a bit
up
of a
at the end
combo
of the
going
turn,
on with it. But again, if you've got that card.
But also, if your cap goes up at the end, at the start of your turn, you move up to your cap.
Yes.
So,
even without the production now, you're getting the production later, really. I don't know. What I think I'm going to enjoy my second play way more. Now that I've seen the game in action, I know what to expect. I know to make sure that I have mitigations and backup plans for everything I plan on doing. I think I'm going to enjoy the game a lot more. It wasn't like this light, silly game about saving a planet. It's like a fierce competition and a scramble to do everything you can before time runs out. Which, again, I guess that's actually a really good thematic tie-in because that's kind of what the game feels like.
And you need backup plans for your plans. Again, just like the game, so meta. Yeah, there's a real feel of progression. Like each round you draw those cubes and the comet inches closer, quite graphically moving across the board. Like I dig that. The laser saved the planet when we played, so that's the first of the 3 options, and I had 0 invested in that outcome. So cheering for the laser to not save the planet, that amused me somehow. I wanted option number 2 to be the one that worked, damn it. I still won the game, even though I backed the wrong outcome, so that was interesting as well, that was not dependent on a win condition. The card art is great. The sentient life is cute. I just really dig this game.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot to like about it, and it's going to be interesting to see how our thoughts evolve about it as we play it again. Well, that's all what we've been doing and playing. What about you? Let us know. Stop by our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com and hop into the What You Been Playing area. Your ship arrives to investigate a strange planet after receiving a message from the Traveler. Something goes wrong, and the crew manage to escape through escape pods, each landing on a different part of the planet. You are one of these crew members, and you've just stepped out of your escape pod with a unique vantage on the unknown planet. What do you do?
So that's the setup and premise for the extremely ambitious open world board game Vantage from Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier himself, featuring some really fantastic artwork from Valentina Filick, Soren Mending, and Emilian Rotavo. Now, before we go any further, I want to assure you, we are not going to spoil anything about Vantage. A huge part of the joy in this game is discovery and discovering things on your own and exploration, and we don't want to spoil that for you. Everything we mention here is either described in the rulebook or you're going to see it in the first few minutes of your first play. So don't worry about us spoiling anything here.
as spoiler-free as humanly possible. Vantage is a cooperative card and dice-driven game for 1 to 6 players with an extremely variable playtime. You can expect to spend at least a couple of hours each time you sit down. What is really unique about this game is that it's not in any way a campaign game. Each game starts with a fresh set of crew that have landed on this planet, but what you learn in one game can and should be carried over into the next. This is a game about exploring a strange new world a bit at a time and learning more about it during each play.
Vantage comes in a rather heavy, very packed, standard size board game box. Within are a ridiculous amount of cards in a mix of oversized and Hobbit-style cards. In general, the large cards are used as your vantage point, what you see in front of you. And the other cards are for your character, inventory, skills, but there's a lot of other neat things going on with these cards, mixing and matching them. There are almost 2,000 cards in the box. With those, you also get a playmat, stands for the larger cards, wooden tokens in 3 shapes, in all 6 player colors, currency counters, silver wooden boost cubes, cardboard skill tokens, and 2 types of custom dice. Skill dice, showing the 6 skills in the game, and challenge dice, rolled whenever you do something in the game.
So the box also comes with a bunch of rather thick books. There's the rule book, which is excellent, what I come to expect from Stonemaier. There's a book for each of the 6 skills in the game, a book you use when departing an area, a book of secrets, and a spiral-bound map book. During play, players will be passing these books back and forth and reading from them. Now, as an alternative to using these books, Stonemaier has worked with RulePop to create something for Vantage, which you can find at vantage.rulepop.com. Honestly, I found this to be invaluable to use for a couple of reasons. One being that it avoids spoilers. You're never going to grab the wrong book and look the wrong thing up. And you're never going to see or read something you didn't want to see. Also, it does include a full reference and basically the full copy of the rule book.
The first time we played, we used the books. Every time since then, we've used the rule pop. I am in love with the rule pop. It is so much quicker than having to flip through and look it up in the book as well. Our only complaint about the component quality is how busy the cards are and how much small text there is and how small the font is in those various books that I'm telling you to just put aside and use the rule pop. The cards, the very first play, we had poor lighting. I had a rough time with it. With good lighting, it's not too bad. And the rule pop really fixed every complaint I had about reading from those books, which I found the font size far too small for me and my crummy eyes. But you don't have to read unless you're playing solo. I mean, as long as you're playing with someone else, it doesn't matter who's reading the parts, right? So it works.
And one of the things that's nice about this game, at least for reading the cards, except for like the mission card that's put at the middle of the table or the Destiny cards, you can pick up everything and just look at it. So like you're dealing with your own cards. And if you do have a hard time, you can pick it up. There's not a lot of needing to see across the table or needing to see things on the opposite side of the board. And there's no screens to see past. And everything's in zone 1 and 2 when we talk about the zones of play, which we haven't mentioned in a long time.
Yeah. And you're not ruining any setup by picking it up, looking at the card, figuring out what you need to get off it and setting it back down, except possibly some cubes that were placed on it that you can swap about.
Well, you start each game of Vantage by picking or randomly assigning crew members to the players. Each crew member is good at one of the game's 6 skills, and as a result, the game plays with 1 to 6 players. Next, everyone finds themselves on the planet, represented by a location card that shows their current vantage, what they see in a first-person perspective. Players have communicators that can talk to each other and share what they see and are doing. From here, it's 100% on each player what they decide to do.
Yeah, so these Vantage cards, these location cards go in a little card holder in front of you, and they're designed so that you make sure you can't show the other players. And there's even like another card you put behind them so you can pick up your Vantage to kind of look at it, to look for small details. On each location card, there will be 6 actions that can be taken while at that location for each of the game's 6 skills, which we mentioned a couple times. Now, those skills are move, look, engage, help, take, and overpower. The actual options, though, are based on what's there. So if you see, say, a sentient on your Vantage card, the options could be things like look, talk, or take, pickpocket, or help, donate. And all the cardo list is that second part. You'll just see talk, pickpocket, and donate, and they'll be color-coded to match the associated skills. Another example is like you might find a treasure chest that'll say dismantle, pick, or overpower, with dismantle being engaged, pick being lock, and overpower being smash. And each location card will have a different set of options, though you will start to see some repetition in the different actual action names.
Now, one of the main rules in Vantage is that you can only do one action at each location card. So if you do run into a sentient and you talk to them, then you're not going to, then your next turn, you can't pickpocket them. Though, if somehow another player manages to get to the same spot, they can choose another action when they interact with that card. Each player only gets to do one thing per card, unless you choose an action that tells you to continue.
Now, a very important part of Vantage is that everything you try to do works. You automatically succeed in the game. If you choose to pick the lock on a chest, you pick the lock. Now, there are dice involved, but you aren't rolling to see if you succeed. You are rolling to see what the cost of that action is, which could be a loss of health, time, or morale.
Now, whenever you take an action advantage, you're going to tell the player on your left or your opponent, or you're going to grab the rule pop and look it up yourself, what you want to do, what skill you're using. They're going to grab the appropriate book or open up the storybook section of the rule pop and look up the location you're at, putting the number in. They then tell you the cost of your action, which will be the number of challenge dice you must now roll. And then after you resolve the roll, taking any penalties, they tell you what happens, which could be almost anything and could lead to more options and more rolls, or may just end your turn.
You said opponent, but that's wrong. Like, there's no opponents. This is a very co-op game. Before any challenge die roll, the players can spend skill tokens, and those let you put back one die per token. You get some tokens at the start of the game, and then you can earn more during play. After spending tokens, you roll. Die results can include a loss of health, morale, or time, or there's a blank for no effect, or there's an arrow that lets you return the dice back to the pool.
Now, every card you collect in Vantage has slots to hold dice. Each of these slots can only hold a specific die. Sometimes this is based on a die result, like a slot that can hold health dice, or other times it's based on an action. For example, a help slot can hold a die used on a green help skill. Some are based on the terrain type you are in, and others only work when taking specific actions. This all makes a lot more sense when you see it in front of you. Yeah. The important thing to know is that after a challenge roll, you are going to try and take as many dice out of the pool as possible and put them into slots on your cards, or sometimes even your fellow players' cards. You want to do this because any dice that aren't slotted happen, and most of those results are negative.
Now, this can be bad because your game ends if anyone's health, morale, or time drops to 0. You actually immediately stop and then look up a specific passage in one of the books. In addition, having to die slots on your characters, your crew member, and equipment, each crew member has a way to re-roll dice. Plus, there are also plenty other ways to mitigate bad rolls, but we're going to leave that for you to discover on your own. There's also the system where the dice refresh, which is why you want to take stuff out of the pool, because refreshing is awesome, because then all the dice come off your cards and go back into the general pool. That way you can use all your slots again.
Another option you have on your turn is to depart the location you're at and move somewhere new. And this usually involves taking a difficulty 1 move action and swapping your location card for a new one. But sometimes the task is more difficult, and that will involve the player on your left looking up your location in the depart book and telling you what you need to do to be able to leave.
In addition to interacting with the location you are at and your Vantage, you can also interact with almost all the cards you collect during the game. While playing, you will discover all kinds of things and collect new cards. These are stored in a grid of 3x3 tableau in front of you. Now, all of these cards will have dice slots, as mentioned, and many will include actions you can take, including your initial crew card. Most of these interactions are handled the same as already described, but you'll be looking up the card number instead of the location number in the appropriate book. There are also some card actions that tell you everything you need to know right there on the card.
After each action, play passes to the next player, who then is going to use what's in front of them, their cards, their location, their Vantage, to decide what they want to do. And then they're going to give what they want to do to the next player. They're going to tell them the difficulty. You're going to roll the dice. You're going to read off the results. And through this system, going around the table multiple times, you are going to explore the world. Now, when you do first start the game, you are presented with a mission card that gets in the middle of the play for everyone to work on and complete. It is totally optional that you actually do this mission, but if you do, you can end the game with a mission victory. You're like, we completed our mission, we're done. Or when you complete your mission, you can just keep playing. There's also a forever goal that's in every game of filling your grid, that inventory system Sean mentioned. If you manage to get a full grid of 3x3 cards, you then have to look something up.
In addition to all of that, while exploring, you may discover one or more destinies. And if anyone completes a destiny, the game immediately ends with a destiny victory. If your group somehow manages to complete both a mission and then a destiny, that's an ultimate victory.
The other way the game can end is when people have just had enough. One of the official ways to end the game is to just set a time limit. And that's what we've seen most groups do. Decide we're going to play Vantage until 4 p.m. and then stop then wherever we are. We also stopped a game based on something big happening at a place that seemed like a logical stopping point.
Now, when the game ends, you're done. You just pack it up. Now, I admit packing up's a bit of a pain. Setup in this game is nice and quick, but putting away all those cards in numeric order can take some time. Next time you sit down to play, you start fresh, completely fresh. New crew members, new landing spot, new vantages, more to explore. Vantage is not a campaign game in any way, nor are you expected to play with the same players every time. It's also not any type of legacy game. There's no permanent changes made to the game as you play. But there's a twist compared to most games like this. You are expected to carry over everything you learned, the knowledge gained in one game to all your future games, which to me is just fascinating. This is especially true when you play with different people and when you play with people who have played with different groups. Everyone is going to have a different shared experience with this game. And honestly, I find this one of the most enjoyable aspects of Vantage is this whole, I don't even know, group think, meta mind thing that's happening at the same time.
Mechanically, there's one small thing they do where you have markers for your characters to show where they are in the Vantage deck. So it helps you shove them back in as you swap locations. So mechanically, that's slick. We haven't gotten that far ourselves, and the game suggests taking notes, mapping, creating an information pool to better carry over what you learned from each game. I will say we have definitely thought that maybe grid paper and a map would be a good idea. I sometimes, we were drinking the one night, we were having difficulty remembering what information we had learned the previous round sometimes by the time it got back around to us. So as far as carrying forward information, but it's a game about exploration, and you want to leave notes for your future explorers. That seems like a good idea.
And to be honest, I just kind of felt that particular game just kind of had a different feel and was kind of thematic. We were obviously the lower decks crew members on that particular mission compared to how seriously we've taken it some other games.
The Vantage is a game about exploration, investigation, and discovery. This is not a competitive game about winning. There's no wrong way to play Vantage, and the rulebook even includes the URTF, the Universal Rule of Thematic Fun, which states if you are ever in doubt about a Vantage rule, card, ability, or anything else, choose the most fun answer that makes sense thematically.
This is very obvious over on the BGG forums where people keep asking questions, and Jamie, the game designer, keeps replying with, "Oh, that sounds like a great house rule. Yeah, you should try that. That sounds like a great house rule. So does that one."
Yeah, and this, like, to me, this kind of loosey-goosey rule of cool feeling just feels very role-playing game-like pen and paper tabletop role-playing game-like. I find that not only that, there is a silent encouragement to play a character when playing this game. Each crew member being specialized in each different skill, and even just having like a name like medic. And thematically, the medic card can soak health loss from other players. And every time I play, I end up with a personality for my crew members. No, I'm not sitting down and writing a detailed backstory, but I often find that by the time I'm on my third card, I have this idea of who my character is, and I start making decisions based on that headcanon instead of choosing what might be the best option for the group. And I find that kind of neat and an aspect of emergent gameplay from here that I don't think is totally unintentional.
I don't even think this game necessarily has best options. I think it just has the
That's
most
true.
interesting option. There might be the best option mechanically, based on how many of a specific color token are on the table, might be the easiest, the one that's least likely to
Mhm.
lead to you going bankrupt in one of your three stats and thereby triggering an end game condition. But I don't think that there's necessarily a best option.
Now, for your first game, the game recommends, and we 100% agree, just go exploring, wandering, trying things. Go out and poke the fire, lick the electricity, run through the water, climb a tree, see what happens when you do things. But
Mhm.
also, find out what things there are to do.
Yeah, the
That's
actual
this that's this whole game. It's just about discovery.
Now, I will say there is a bit of learning curve to this game. There is something to get over, and that's just because the dice rolling and placement system is kind of unique, like really unique. I've personally never seen anything quite like it before. But you should be able to pick it up by the end of your first game. And once you do get it, once everyone understands what all their slots are for and what can slot where, it actually becomes very quick and slots very well. The hardest part, though, is just learning which dice can be slotted where. And honestly, I've learned that it's worth time spending time with new players going over this detail. One of the things I learned at our last event was actually showing people the rule book where it shows you the example of a card and what each section means, sunk in a little better than just telling people. And especially because the cards you start with don't have all the possible options that are unlocked as you play. So examples in the rulebook are great. The rulebook's pop is good for this as well. And honestly, don't be afraid to use them. Like I tend to like to DM this game and kind of teach and let everyone players do their own thing. But like use those tools. They're there for a reason. Because I got to say, the system's a little awkward at first. It's just very different. And there's some emergent learning there with like, you want to refresh the die pool. Why do you want to refresh it? I don't know. The rulebook says I want to refresh it. But once you see it working, you're like, oh, of course I want to refresh it because that frees up more options every turn. It's a very unique and narrative system that honestly reminds me of like some dice pool based RPG systems. Like there's some elements of Cortex Plus here, and some Fate with the Overcome auctions and stuff like that. And I can actually see some RPG blood in this game, and I think it's really fascinating.
There's just three things that you need to catch on to. You need to understand that less dice is good, that you
Yes.
want to get rid of dice. You need to understand that you can slot the dice, and that equals to getting rid of dice because you've slotted them on your card and the effect isn't hitting you. And you need to understand that you want to reset your dice pool because that clears off your cards. And that's that third one I found that people just don't get until they're playing. But you pick it up pretty quick. And then the rest of the game is just about doing whatever sounds interesting.
Now, Dee mentioned this a little bit earlier, but one of the first mistakes we made in our first play of the game was the location we chose. Not the location on the planet. You don't get to choose that. That's just rats random. But the actual physical location we played in, the lighting wasn't great and it was loud. And now that didn't allow us to focus on the cards, on our Vantage, and the experience of what was going on as much as we should have. There is a lot to take in this game from every vantage point, and it's in your best interests to do so in a way that enables that rather than gets in the way of that like a crowded bar does.
This is not a game to play at a pub. Absolutely
No.
not. Bad choice.
Nope. Actually, honestly, what's hard about this review is I just want to share all the awesome things and the things we unlocked and the things we discovered and the fact there are certain things in the game we didn't expect. And I almost want to do a spoiler filled review where I just gush on about all the cool stuff we've discovered in Vantage. We have our own discord.tabletopbellhop.com, and I'm really tempted to make a private room for discussing Vantage for all the locals so we can have a shared experience of what you find on the planet. And that wouldn't be out of theme for the game at all.
It's true. I will say what blows me away is how different each play has felt. How we discover completely unique things with each play. And I'm having a heck of a time not giving away any spoilers. And I have really enjoyed this game. The sense of discovery it's just kind of magic.
It's interesting because other than like the character cards, in some ways I don't want to share. I don't want to explain because while it's really cool to say, "Oh, I did this thing and it was epic," at the same time, if I tell you all about that and let you know where it happens, then you don't get to have that experience. and it was such a good experience. I want you to have that experience.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of both sides there.
Yeah, I loved my first play of Vantage. Like it was rough. It was a learning game. It took me a bit to figure out exactly how those dice slots work and the choice of iconography. Not that it's bad. It's just unique. It's different. The first time we got a card that let us use specific skills, I was like, what the heck? And then looking at what the object was and what it let me do, it all made sense, but it just took a while. And I got to say, it took a bit to kind of get into the flow of the game and why are we rolling these dice, and even the fact that you succeed. Like growing up as a role player with traditional games, when it says talk to the guard, I want to roll to see how well that went. I don't want to roll to see how much it hurt to talk to the guard, right? And it's just kind of a different way of thinking of things. But once we got around the table, maybe 3 times, everyone had gone 3 times. I fell in love with what was happening. Like no other board game has given me such a feel of wonder and discovery. Like there's something special about this game. Jamie did something right. What was even more enjoyable was playing a second time with our kids. Like first time I played with Dee and Sean, next time I played with the kids, and it just happened that Eve was in the same area as Sean, and I was able to go, no, don't do that because something bad will happen, because I remember that. And then remembering something else that happened to Sean that was awesome, and trying to coach Genevieve or Eve, and I'm like, oh, what? Oh, I don't remember. I don't know which way he went. I can't remember where that was, but in this area is this thing you really want to do because you'll love it. And I couldn't remember. And I'm like, ah, damn, I was cursing my own memory. And I'm like, I almost called up Sean and said, like, Sean, can you talk to Eve? Can you explain what happened to you on this planet in a board game we played 2 weeks ago? Like, it's just so weird. There's a meta here that just doesn't seem to exist with any other game.
Yeah. So one thing I want to mention, and this goes back to something I said earlier, is that part about always succeeding, because you do. But there are at times levels of success. And I think most importantly, while it's a sandbox game, you can't do anything you want.
Right.
If the card says push, what you think of when you look at that card at your vantage point and want to push something may not be the same thing that the story has you pushing. And that can be a little jarring. It's interesting and it's exciting, but it can also be a little frustrating. So even if you're over it and enjoying the wondrous outcome you actually got, you still might be going, but I wanted to push that.
Yeah, and that actually seems surprisingly common. Multiple times I went to take an action and learned, no, but that thing, why are you telling me this? I didn't want to do that. Now, one option, and this goes with that universal rule of fun, I think that's what it was called, is a lot of people seem to be taking it where the player to your left will read off what you're doing. So you're like, I want to push the stone. Look up yellow 257 and look up yellow 257. And it says, push the sentient difficulty 5. You go, no. I want to push the stone and allowing you to back up. And which Jamie replied, that sounds like a really cool house rule, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, one thing.
Now, I don't know, this game, like because of the memory elements and everything, I'm really tempted to chronicle this game. Like let's go and get a nice new moleskin notebook and some graph paper and like I even have old RPG mapping tools from when my dad and I played through Bard's Tale that are specifically made for text adventures, where it's box-based locations where you just connect lines for northeast, southwest. Like I kind of want to bring those out and start taking notes and like actually learn what's going on and figuring out where we've been in the planet and what actually is to the east and the west. And maybe even like grabbing a sketchbook when I get to look in the spiral bound map book and make my own version of the map, because then we'd have a permanent record. Yes, I could just take a picture with my phone, but that just feels like cheating. I'm really tempted to do that, but I kind of feel like we're not ready yet. Like right now, in all the games I played with all the different people in games I've like moderated or watched, we've had 2 people end up in the same spot on the map, and they did not land in the same spot. They wandered to the same spot. That has happened once in all these plays. Like everything's still new and wondrous. And the fact I don't remember everything about everything is actually kind of part of the fun.
Graph paper is definitely a friend.
You do each land, like there's only so many starting spaces. The starting spaces repeat, but what you do from there changes based on what people choose to do. So the world feels massive. I'm curious to graph it out and see just how big it is. I cannot believe that there is a board game where we were talking about taking a sketchbook and making maps. Like just the entire concept is very. I've done it for video games, so I guess it's very video game like.
So there are 216 different starting points. So it's not like it's going to be common that you end up in the same spot. I wanted to point that out, that it is extremely varied how many different starting points there are.
That seems weird. I would not have guessed on that based on what I remember about how to generate your starting spot. But okay.
Well, you have one card that determines one of 6 different possible cards, and on each of those is every possible combination of the 6 skills. And which I remember is 6 times 6. Maybe I'm failing my stats and probabilities.
But you're right. It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to talk about a bit, just because it's a cooperative game and very open communication rules, something that does come up in these kind of games is quarterbacking. So far, I have not seen it. I have not seen this as a problem whatsoever in any of the games I played with any of the groups. Honestly, I find everyone has enough to worry about, and they're so busy looking at their own vantage points and their own cards and trying to decide what to do on their own to really coach the other players. That is until the dice come out. But honestly, as a cooperative game, the dice do feel like something you should quarterback. If someone can figure out a better way to get rid of all the dice, yes, do it. And that's just going to help everyone play the game longer and have a better amount of fun. And also, you're not allowed to show your vantage to anyone else. Now, I could see maybe if you play this enough, you start going to the same spots. You may have people like, oh, there's this thing here. You need to do this to get this reward. You got to do it because it's good and we want to help the whole group. It's part of that whole shared knowledge thing. But like, honestly, when it did come up in the one game where we did have people go to the same spot, it was just a matter of like, hey, you might not want to do this. Here's the outcome I know will happen. And then the players still got to make their own decisions. So
what I would say is, based on the variety of the missions I've seen so far, you're going to want different outcomes based on what your goals are. And the goals are different. So that mitigates that repetition as well.
True.
So a quick Google that I did not double check says 126 starting locations.
Because you can't have them. Yeah, okay. Because it's green and red, not red and green. Those both count to the same location.
There you go.
I was close, but it's still a lot.
Yeah. So going along with what Dee said, I'm really not sure that quarterbacking is likely to be an issue. While someone may have been to a place before, they've only been able to do one of the actions there. So you may know what 1, 2, maybe even 3 of the 6 actions available there are, but there's still a lot to explore, and you may not want to achieve what someone else is telling you to do by doing what they did.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not that aspect of the game I'm concerned about. It's more, I know how to solve this puzzle, or I know how to complete this quest. That's where I worry more about the quarterbacking is that aspect of the game more than, oh, I've seen this guy. Like there's some aspects with what we saw. I don't know. I don't know if it's really going to be a problem or not.
I will say, when you played it with our youngest child, they were so excited about this game that they said, the next thing I want to do is get up and first thing in the morning, play this game and just play it all day. Like it was.
Yes. Our daughter wants to Extra Life Marathon Vantage. Oh man, that'd be quite the stream. Tempting. Now, another concern with the game, again, I don't think the quarterbacking is really an issue, but again, you know your group. You know if that's an issue. You either enjoy cooperative games or you don't, right? Though I'm sure Deanna will call out, here's another example of one she enjoys when she usually doesn't. But one of the other concerns about the game is downtime based on the player count. Do the entire system, pick an action, look it up in a book, roll the dice, get a result, and then potentially taking more actions. Each individual player turn in Vantage can be like wildly different. Like sometimes you're like, I move north, I roll a single die and I swap, or I spend a token, then I swap a card and I'm done. There's my whole turn. Whereas then the next one's like, I went into a hut and it let me continue. So I talked to someone, I bought something, I pickpocketed something, and I did this and I did this and I jumped out the window, and you get to do all of this. And like that one player's turn takes 15 minutes real time or longer. There can be a lot of downtime in Vantage. Which is why I think the game is seems to be listed as best at 3 players or less on Board Game Geek, and even in the Facebook threads and stuff tend to recommend actually 1 or 2 player. While everyone's going to be invested in the group story unfolding, going that many minutes between turns can be a little annoying. Especially if all you're waiting to do is move, where you're like, does a ton of things, does amazing things. discovers all kinds of stuff. I move north, does a ton of things. It doesn't feel great.
Yeah, and so much so that that's a house rule I wanted to add. If you move, interact with your next card instead of just moving, because it's so anticlimactic to wait all that time for it to be your turn to go, I go north, give me card 262.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at 3 players with our first experience, that downtime didn't really feel like it mattered to me. And I have a really strong feeling that for Jamie, it's how he envisions things playing out. You want to know what the other players are doing. You want to be involved in that knowledge and perhaps even discussions about the actions to be taken. I have little doubt that in his mind, there's nothing boring about other people's turns. In fact, at one point, he suggests on the blog playing remotely through voice only and provides a Google Sheet to help enable that. Unfortunately, it does require you all to have copies of Vantage, which gets pricey. But I have no doubt that there are plenty of groups of owners of this game, possibly even eager to try this out.
Yeah, I'd admit that does sound really cool. That'd be a really good Discord game. I don't know. I think I gotta stop. I can't think of much more I can say without starting to spoil things. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope this gives you a good idea about what Vantage is about and why it's special. Why everyone's talking about it. While this game has similarities to other story-based games, like there's definitely a feel of Tale of the Arabian Nights, where every location gives you a list of options and they're all adjectives. There's some legacy of Dragonhold with the Witch Way feel and your character leveling up. There's the various Witch Way games, and honestly, one of the games this feels most similar to me is the Corroded Chronicles series, where each character takes a different action and each character has a book and someone reads it to you. Like that's actually very similar to the skill used in this game. But it's this does it all new and different and honestly, I'd have to say better. This gives that feeling of exploration and discovery to a level I've never discovered in a board game before. You don't often get a new game that's like, this is special, this is unique, this is ambitious, that really is honestly groundbreaking. Like this presents a new game night experience to me, and an experience I encourage everyone to try at least once.
That's exactly it. This is an experience and you should seek it out and try it. Go see if you can find it at your local game store or at a convention, or just go buy the dang thing. It is unique and everyone should experience it at least once.
So one thing we haven't mentioned yet is that there will be no expansions for this game. It's done.
Mm-hmm.
There are, however, some upgrades you can get, and we have looked rather longingly at the tableau mats in particular, but other coin and token upgrades are there as well. For the game, though, Jamie has stated that other than errata, there is nothing more to be released for this game. The world is complete for you to explore as it is.
So I will say that doesn't rule out a Vantage 2 or some other game using the same system in the future. So let's all go buy up copies of Vantage to encourage Jamie to work on part 2, because I know this one was multiple years in the making. Now, due to the fact the game is so different from other games, it's hard for us to do my usual, this game is for X and not for Y. If you enjoy exploring open worlds, you're going to love this game. Honestly, there's nothing else that compares in board game form. This reminds me of a board game version of No Man's Sky, though it's only one planet and it's a much more interesting and populated planet than anything in No Man's Sky. If you like completing quests, interacting with NPCs and getting distracted, and if you're one of those players who has to complete every side quest, you're going to get a lot of gameplay out of your copy of Vantage because it's going to take you a long time. If you like playing a character when you play a board game, you kind of get to do that. You get that a little RPG feel. The only people I can't see enjoying this are the people who want something completely different out of board games. Those super competitive players where they're trying to outplay people and win. Because you can't win in this game. Sure, you can complete missions and destinies, but then you just start fresh and start telling a new story.
I am one of those super competitive people who normally wants to play heavy strategy games to beat other people. And this was it was a fun experience. You just have to understand when you're going into it that you're not there to win.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't stand the idea of a game restarting every time you play, this one may bother you. While knowledge carries over, nothing else does. So, in roguelike fashion, you start again from the beginning with nothing but some ideas. At least, unlike a roguelike, the planet is going to remain the same layout and not get procedurally rebuilt between.
So again, multiple times on multiple different forums, Board Game Geek, Facebook groups, and so on, Jamie has said, if you want to carry over your character and your equipment and your cards between play, who am I to stop you? That sounds like a great house rule. Vantage is the most open world sandbox we've ever played. It features a shockingly large world to discover. Oh my God, I was shocked the second time I got to look in the Spiral Bound book and how different that map was from the first one. Oh my God, it's big. And it provides more player agency than honestly any board game I've ever played before. This is the closest I have seen playing a role-playing game where you literally can try anything. You're limited to the stuff on your cards and in your Vantage. But there's so many different options. Like this is the ultimate sandbox game right now. I can't wait for this to get surpassed because I don't even know how it could get better. What I want to know though is what is your favorite sandbox board game?
I was going to say, like I said before, what other board game has prompted us to want to draw maps? Really, yes. I can't think of one, right? So, all right, we're asking, what is your favorite sandbox style board game? Let us know in the comments, send us an email, reach out on social media, or better yet, post something over on our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
Now, one of the action options we've seen in Vantage is brew, though we haven't discovered any coffee yet. Maybe you can help us out on our next trip by visiting tabletopbellhop.com/coffee and keep us both motivated and caffeinated. It's time for the annual Tequinox Fair, and you, the contestants, have gathered to prove that your kettle has the mettle to win. And if you hated that pun, a warning, this review has them in mass quantities.
Tea Wishes is a 2 to 4 player fanciful point salad designed by Manny Vega, featuring artwork from Sandra Tang, a duo many of you may know from Flamecraft. While the Op is usually known for its lighter family weight games, Tea Witches is a quite heavy, longer game where you can expect to spend half an hour to 45 minutes per player playing, and that's not including setup or takedown. Now, we do have to thank the Op for providing us with a review copy of Tea Witches.
This is one of the cutest games with the best table presence. The game just looks amazing. Sandra's art is wonderful and effective, giving the game a unique look that's also highly functional. The component quality is up there, with the main feature of the game being a rotating plastic fountain, like it has a built-in Lazy Susan mechanic, and 6 plastic bowls that hold your tea components. The game also features extremely cute teapup workers that are dual-layered to hold the various tea counters. There's also a deluxe upgrade kit that features acrylic tea tokens and wooden toppings that you can purchase separately, and we'll be talking about those later.
Now, a game of Tea Witches is split over 4 days of festivities. Each day, players start by simultaneously summoning new customers. This uses a push your luck system where every player has their own deck of customer cards. Players flip up one card at a time, activating that card, getting the bonuses it provides. They can stop at any time, but bust if they flip up 2 witches from the same coven. If a player busts, they only get to keep the first 3 cards they flipped.
Next up is the service phase, kind of the main phase of the game where players will take turns sending out their tea pups to a pup stop on the main board. When you place a pup, you're going to collect any toppings shown for that spot and get a number of actions. These actions let you rotate the fountain and collect tea. Each teapup can hold one type of tea, but when you refill them, you get to move the tea they're restoring to your shop board, where you start off with one spot to hold tea and plenty of room for those toppings.
So just so you can visualize this, the teapups are animated teapots that have like animalistic features added to them. They're really cute. After completing actions, you activate the boutique that your teapup was placed at. There are 6 of these. At the Full Moon Market, you buy upgrades for your booth, new places to hold tea, and toppings. At Brew to Go, you pick up new to go orders. Hex support lets you brew tea for the hags there, as well as buy hex upgrades for your player board. Howell's Warehouse gets leftover goods from the Full Moon Market and sells them for a discount, while Mai's Specialties lets you buy game-breaking special tea cards. And finally, there's the Celebrity Crush, where you can serve witchy influencers and turn them into loyal customers.
After activating a boutique, you can now serve tea to your customers. Each customer requires 1 or 2 teas and may also require toppings. You spend these from your board or from one of your tea-filled pups. The tea pups are magical and never run out of tea, but can only serve each customer once. When a customer is served, you get their reward plus a bonus if they are under an upgraded hex war, and then you flip them over and they become loyal customers.
And the final round step on each round is to fulfill to-go orders. You get one of these at the start of each day, and you can get more by visiting that Brew to Go boutique. Each of these shows a combination of 2 or 3 teas, and if that combination exists in the board, which is a combination of teapups and fountains, you can turn it in. You get money, but the owner of the teapups gets loyalty points for this.
Now, at the start of each new day, you're going to have customers that might want to leave and you want to keep them loyal, even if they haven't been served. And you can do that by giving them a reward coupon, which is earned with those loyalty points. Your teapups return and are emptied, and the boutiques all refresh during that phase. You then flip over your served customers who become loyal customers for that next turn, plus any ones you bribed, and the next round begins with another summoning.
At the end of the game, players sell off their leftover toppings, get points for leftover tea in their shop and how much money they have. Add up the value of their stall upgrades, get points for leftover loyalty reward coupons and specialty cards. Receive a bonus for each hex ward purchased, score their completed to-go orders, and earn points for each loyal customer and celebrity. The witch with the most points is best in show.
So Tea Witches is like a fascinating point salad that combines all kinds of mechanics. You've got like a push your luck card game. You got hand management going on as you manipulate your deck. I guess deck management more than hand management. There's worker placement, which is true worker placement, where you can't bump other teapups, and there's only one spot more than one can go to. There's definitely order fulfillment. And then there can be, but there might not be, elements of set collection or setting up combos, and those all come from the upgrades you purchase. Now, there's also a feeling of engine building and a very strong feeling of progression as your pool of loyal customers become the game as the game goes on, and it becomes actually a struggle to keep everyone happy while still trying to attract new customers.
The thing I love best here is that core mechanic of the fountain in the center that turns, and how you don't have to go to the resource. You can bring the resource to you. And you're not limited to turn it a certain number of clicks. You can turn it to any tea that you like as you take that turn of manipulating the fountain. I love that core mechanic and the way it lets you think about the game differently.
Yeah, so there is a lot going on in this game, and this is, for me, both its strength and its weakness. Regulars know I'm not the resident heavy gamer, and this game hasn't changed that.
Yeah, actually, to me, this is kind of the biggest thing I think people need to know about Tea Witches, and I kind of wanted to shout it right at the top of the review, is that if you are used to like the regular games from the op, if you're like an op fan who buys their games and enjoys their game, this is a significant step up from what they usually make. Well, it's not the heaviest game they make. That honor goes to Tiny Epic Game of Thrones. It's up there. I think it literally is the second heaviest game they make. This is a medium to medium heavy game with a ton of decision points, an unforgiving economy early in the game at least, and multiple paths to victory. It is a point salad. This is a game where you're going to be competing for spots and taking actions, not only to further your own plans, but to thwart the plans of others, and has a playtime to match all of this. This is not a quick, silly game about brewing tea and witches. This is a sit down and try to outthink, outplan, and outplay your opponents with multiple things you have to manage, and I love it for it.
I too love this. I will say, though, the box art, the general look of the game, it has this light, whimsical look, and that can fool people. When we've been showing it to people at public play events, I'm like, I want you to know you're getting into a couple hours here, and it's a medium to heavy Euro. Like it's not this cute witches thing that you might be thinking you're getting. And as part of that, like the setup on this game, it honestly takes more than 20 minutes just to lay it all out. Because I've had people waiting while I was scurrying to set this game up, and a 20-minute setup is not an exaggeration.
Yeah, now one interesting twist to this heavyweight that Mo just described throughout is the fact that your opening action on each turn is a random draw press your luck mechanic that has no real way to deal with the potential for disaster other than getting cards out of your deck, other points of the game. Now, if you do eventually get those right cards out, then you have completely eliminated the push your luck aspect. So it's an odd mechanic to find in an otherwise meaty, thoughtful game of careful planning.
To me, T-Witch has a great flow. It pours well. There's something about the order of events and the way that things play out to just click for me. It just feels right. Yeah, you're fulfilling the customers in line is important, but it's not the big thing in the end. It's not necessarily the most important thing. It can be more important to keep your loyal customers happy. And if you can't summon the right people, then you need to shift to try to get the celebrities hooked on your brew. And getting a celebrity brew hooked early can be really powerful, but they're hard to keep happy, which again kind of makes sense to me. And then you're going to need money to do all this. So in order to meet the demand, you're going to have to upgrade your stall, and fulfilling some to-go orders is a good way to get some extra cash. And watching who you're keeping happy and who you're not, who you fulfill, is all part of the strategy of this game, and trying to figure out the best way to get the most points to make the judges happy at the end of the game.
I love that it's a true point salad with no one path to victory. I enjoy that about it.
Yeah, so for me, I don't know if it feels right is how I would describe the flow of this game. To me, it feels a little more sort of forced. I admit this game isn't my cup of tea, and I'm coming at it with that bias. But it is in part because things feel forced. You're doing all these things because the rules say so. This is how you achieve this. This is how you achieve this. If you want to do this, you have to do this. And it doesn't actually feel all that natural to me. But again, that theme didn't connect with me, so that could be it.
One of the things I enjoy is how you unlock more teapops as you get further in the game. So you start with only two workers to place, and then you unlock a third. In a 4-player game, the board gets tight with everyone having 3 teapops out. And I like that aspect of the tightness and how you have to readjust your choices. But then there's a trade-off there, in that the 4-player games go long, and the downtime between turns is long. So it.
So the other thing about this game, obviously, we've mentioned a couple times here, is how great it looks. What I find interesting about this one is we host public play events where we bring a large selection of games, and this is one we've never had to sell people on. Just having it out on the table, people will come up and pick it up and be like, what's this? I'm interested. And then if we can get it set up, then you have people going, oh, what's that? And gathering around and watching. Especially if you catch someone turning the fountain, people are like, oh, what's going on over there? It is a very impressive looking game that definitely catches people's eyes, and it's nice to have something. The rest of the components are actually just as nice, and I love the artwork and the design work that went into the teapops.
Yeah, well, I freely admit this game didn't connect with me on a mechanical level. It's a beautiful game. It's gorgeous. They went all out and made this look great, as well as being functional. Top-notch game components here in the box, as much as I think most people have come to sort of expect from a game from the op, and polished.
I love Sandra Tang's art. There's a lot of little details going on in the board and the card art. The different player colors have different looking witches. They didn't have to go to that level of uniqueness in the art throughout the game, and I love that they bothered to.
I think it's also probably worth noting that as someone with vision issues, I don't think you had any difficulty playing this game, except for maybe being able to see like the specialty cards and the things that are available out on the table. But that's something usually pretty easily explained by someone else.
Yeah, because there's 3 specialty cards out at any time. You can just read them when you go over there, or have someone tell you about them. And it's not too much information to remember. And you don't really need to see what's going on your opponent's boards across the table. Those might be harder to make out, but I mean, you can get the gist of it, what colors are going for and stuff, very easily. So, yeah.
And while I think now, since we're talking about components and component quality, I do want to mention the deluxe upgrade kit. And I'm sorry, the op here, but we're not really fans. The upgraded toppings are great. They look awesome. They feel great. They look good. I haven't thrown them out, but I immediately pulled out my cardboard versions, replaced them with the wood. They're great. But unfortunately, the acrylic teak tokens are worse than the cardboard ones, both due to the colors used. They are extremely similar in color, and the fact they lost the graphics that are on the actual tokens that make it easy to tell the teas apart by more than just color. And like they literally made a component less accessible than the original components. And the colors don't even match. Like the lightest colored acrylic token represents the second darkest T, which is a dark green. I was extremely disappointed in these. Like they seem like such a great look. Yes, they look cute in your teacup and they kind of bubble up like a glass teacup, but that's not worth it for the visual issues. We have had it every time we've broken this game out, with people making mistakes and playing out a full turning, taking something and then finding out, oh, that's not yellow, that's green. So yeah, unfortunately that seems to be a complete mess.
Yeah, and this isn't just our old eyes, which we admit we have. There are a number of complaints about the same issue, and someone kindly uploaded to the Board Game Geek forums a set of the original tokens next to the upgrades under the different colorblind filter settings, so that you can see just how almost impossible it is with certain color blindness to tell them apart, let alone just the normal vision. We have even talked about modifying these components in order to make them better, since we have them. And well, it's kind of a shame to just waste them. But
yeah,
the fact that they need modifying as an upgraded, better component is really disappointing.
Yeah, if I'm planning on taking paint markers to your deluxe upgrade, there's a problem. We did talk about maybe gluing the other ones underneath too, but I haven't tested it yet.
Now, one thing I did like in T-Witches, it just doesn't happen enough, in my opinion, is there are absolutely zero rule changes based on the player count. Not even setup is different. Everything is identical when playing 2, 3, or 4 players. I love that. Though, as Deanna mentioned, once you add in more players, other things do change, like the fierceness of the competition. The more players you have, the more you're going to fight for those pup placement spots, the more you're going to fight over the upgrades you can buy, getting the right celebrity before someone else gets to them, and so on. Also, there's more chance that the board game state will change, and whatever you plan to do next turn gets ruined by another player's choice, which leads to a significant amount of analysis paralysis. This is particularly evident with 4 players, where planning ahead can almost be fruitless as cards get taken, the fountain gets rotated, upgrades get purchased, and more. This is an interesting one because the weight of the game scales with the player count. The game is actually lighter when you play with less players, which is interesting because there's just more options and less things change, and you can better strategize. And then, as Deanna mentioned, the other thing is the playtime. Once you get the 4-player games, the game can go very long, to the point I can say it's almost too long. It's really borderline for me. And I kind of wish there was an option to just play 3 days when playing with 4 players.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you from playing 3 days. I do feel like it compounds, right? Because not only do you have 4 players at the table, which is going to take longer, but their turns are going to take longer because of the tightness of the board and the AP inherent in having to change your decisions at the last minute. Whereas with 2 players, you really can play ahead, and there's only 2 of you, so it's just so much quicker.
Yeah, this is the big thing for the game. One of the biggest issues being that rotating fountain, which is a fantastic feature in the game, and it's a great tool, and it's a wonderful mechanic. But because of it, you have no idea what position it's going to be in when it gets to your turn, so you can't plan because of that. There are certain things that affects within the game that you just don't know. You have no idea where it's going to be. So you kind of get to the point of, well, why bother?
For me, I actually like T-Witches more than I thought. Yes, this is a case where I expected one thing. I expected it to be a lighter game, more fitting with the op, more fitting with the graphics, like kind of silly game about collecting tea, and it's completely different. It is something other. It is definitely heavier and meatier and requires thinking and strategy and planning and tactics. Holy cow. With 4 players, it's a tactical game instead of a strategic game because, as Sean said, everything changes. Your plan is not going to carry over. And to me, this was a very pleasant surprise. This is actually more than I thought I was going to get out of the game. I actually feel this game's kind of like perfect weight. Like, to me, this is like just at that, I don't have to think too hard. It hurts. I don't get frustrated by my actions being taken by other players because there's always another option because of the point salad nature. I really like the decision space in this game. Like, there's lots of valid options, but it never also feels overwhelming. I'm never sitting there going, well, what the heck should I do? Maybe the first move is the first player on the first turn, but that's about it. I do think 3 is a perfect player count. Once you get up to 4, there's just too much that can mess with your plans. It goes a bit long, but that's about it.
And it didn't feel like it drags. Like to me, there's enough decision points and enough to keep me thinking and trying to figure out what I want to do on my turn to keep my brain engaged in the game the entire time until it comes back around to me. I had the chance to demo this one at Gamma Expo with the designers showing us the game, and I fell in love with it immediately. And then we got it, and I was kind of hesitant to play it, thinking, maybe that was just a really good experience with the designer walking me through it. I'm going to play this game, and it's not going to live up to that, but it so has. I love everything about it.
Yeah, I played this at 4, and I found I started to drift. I started off trying to be really engaged and planning, but the more times that all your planning completely fell apart, the more disinterested I was in trying again the next time. So it was just a matter of sit back and wait until it comes around and then work on what I can do.
So you're the reason we had so much AP.
No, because Sean just took actions.
Yeah, no, we were playing with your daughter who had the worst luck on Push Your Luck ever.
Now, what I'm hoping will happen with T-Witch is for fans of the op, like people who dig their style of games and what they normally publish, to give this a try. I think T-Witch is a really good gateway game for heavier games, right? Like the next step games for people who already are familiar with, modern hobby board games and hobby game mechanics, who have played worker placement games, who've done Push Your Luck, who have tried various things in set collection and that, moving on to something heavier. And I honestly think that's the op's goal here, and I think it's a good one. Just last Sunday, we introduced it to some players who were very scared of the game. They were worried it was going to be too much, especially once I started teaching the various phases of the game. These are people who almost gave up after I started teaching it. But once it got around the table, who stuck with it, by the end, they ended up having an amazing experience. One of the people would not stop talking about the game and how good it is and how they have to pick it up to play with their partner. Completely hooked them on the game, and they were asking us questions like, well, what other games are like this that are the heavier, but not too much? Like this very much fits in our heavy games that don't feel like homework topic that I think we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think that light, approachable theme and the beautiful artwork and the table presence, it all makes it, I don't know, like a welcoming game for a heavier game. And I think it's going to get new people to try heavier games. Just like you said, I've seen new people that wouldn't normally try a heavier game at a public play events play this one on multiple occasions now. So I dig it for that. Yeah.
I do worry, however, and we mentioned this earlier, that some people might get the wrong feeling for it and think that it's going to be an easier game. So if you don't have enough heavier game experience or have someone with that experience to help guide you into this game, you could look at this and think, oh, it's like Quacks of Quedlinburg, and then get very, very shocked at the game you're getting in front of you. So I am struggling here, as this may be one of the most differing opinions we've had about games here. While I think this game is beautiful, and clearly it seems to be engaging to heavier players, I just don't find anything about the play logical or obvious. It's a game where if you aren't too unlucky and follow the rules, you can do really well. But I never found it made much sense other than that's what you have to do, so do it. It just didn't connect with me.
Like
which is odd.
The cute, cozy theme, like I said, I think that's welcoming to some people. But I agree that the theme is not tightly tied to the mechanics in a way where you're just going to remember and everything makes sense, like some games we've talked about recently. There's magical teapots that are going out and picking up tea. They don't empty out. They're always full, except they can only serve one person once. They can't serve two of the same tea to the same person. Like there's a lot of these little if, then, else, that, and you go here and you do this. And, it is a heavier game.
I find it odd just because I feel completely different. To me, the theme seemed really well integrated here, and it just makes perfect sense to me. And you build loyalty to get these tokens to give to people, and somehow it surpassed the mechanics and felt thematic to me. And I don't know why. I'm not sure how we each had a different experience about it. Now, I do want to note one thing. I don't find the luck has a lot to do with it once you learn the game, and I think that's part of a first play experience if you don't know better. Having just watched a gameplay where someone busted on their second card 2 times and never had more than one person to serve, They just had to adapt their strategy. They went full on celebrities, finishing the game with 6 celebrities in their deck and only 2 normal loyal customers. And I think that first play, if you don't know better that that's a valid option, you get lost in that. Oh, I busted. Oh, I busted. Oh, I busted. I had bad luck. I lost because I had bad luck. And I'm like, no, it just makes you adapt that serving those summoned customers can't be your focus because you didn't get them. And actually, I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, and at its heart, it's a game about adapting.
Now, the people I want to try this game are those people who have played modern hobby games but want to try something harder. If you're a fan of Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride, Dominion, even heavier stuff than that, you've done some Space Base or things like that, but you're still worried about a little heavier games with economies and money and set collection, I think this would be a cool game for you to try. I think this could be a great gateway to modern games. What I don't think this is going to win over are the fans of the op games that are on the lighter side, right? They're party games. This is in no way a party game. And while, yes, the summoning feels a little bit like Flip 7, which is also from the op, these are 2 complete different games on 2 completely different levels.
As you know, I love games that are on the heavier side, and it's always great to discover a new game that has enough depth to keep me interested, especially when it's a cute thematic game. You aren't looking at your usual dry, crusty Euro here. Not that there's anything wrong with that. What's a game you think would be a great gateway to the world of heavier board games?
Let us know. Check us out on any of the socials at tabletopbellhop.com. Send us an email to mo@tabletopbellhop.com. Send your love for this game and your hate for me to Sean at tabletopbellhop.com or pop over to our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com and let us know your feelings or your ideas for other gateways to heavier board games. Well, that was the double bell.
That means our shift's coming to an end, and we're going to have to lock the lobby doors.
Before we start locking things down, let's take a moment to thank a selection of our Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patrons, all of whom are awesome. Roger Malosh, Roger Dodger, thank you.
Kat and Tori, it was amazing seeing you in person again. We've got to do it again.
So awesome. Jeff and Sheila Seuss, it's always great to see you guys out.
Jeff Farbman, thanks, Jeff.
Ron F., thank you, Ron.
Thank you to Joe Swick.
Well, this episode is wrapping up. You can always find us at tabletopbellhop.com, all over the web as Tabletop Bellhop, one word. Be sure to subscribe on your podcatcher of choice and set us to auto download so you never miss an episode and they come straight to your podcatcher on Sunday afternoons now. While you're there, why not leave us a review?
And we can always use more questions. I think everyone knows how to get questions to us, but in case you forget, questions at tabletopbellhop.com. Go on the webpage, click Ask the Bellhop, or hit us up on any of our social media accounts, or there's always our Discord.
Send us questions. We love questions, but we hate the algorithm and cursors in my text. I hate that too. We all hate the algorithm, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do so you can get seen. Help us out this week by appeasing our bot overlords and giving our content a thumbs up, a like, a heart emoji, or whatever it is you have to do on the site you found us. Thank you.
That's all for us tonight.
For the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, I'm Sean.
I'm Deanna.
And I'm Mo.
Thank you.
And game on.